Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to this month's LinkedIn Live learning session. I'm Gino Parati, and I'm a communication expert and founder of Right Brain Journeys. We are a learning and development company that helps people learn how to communicate with confidence from the inside out by connecting the head with the heart. So the purpose of these learning sessions are to be concise. It's going to be about 20 minutes of really insightful content to help you make that connection between the head and the heart and help you become a more effective and confident communicator. Today's topic is going to be some tools that you can use and some tips that you can use to learn how to speak with confidence when going live. So I've gotten some requests with people who have been tuning into my LinkedIn Live learning sessions, wondering how I'm able to deliver things with confidence. And of course, when things are live, they don't ever go completely smoothly. There's always something that's happening, questions even that you don't plan on, right? So there's some level of impromptu preparation or lack of preparation, impromptu speaking when you are doing a live event. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today are some tips to keep your composure while speaking live. If you're joining live here and you're not watching on the replay, I encourage you to go ahead and use the chat function and let us know where you're joining from. It's always fun to see where people are attending. We are an international group, and I, of course, have many connections all over the world here. So all of my network is invited, and it's fun to see where people are joining from. I am broadcasting live from my network studio here. That's a joke. It is my studio, but this is my home studio. It's become my broadcast center, of course, since the pandemic started. So welcome to my home and my broadcast center. The format, again, is going to be 20 minutes of lecture, followed by a period of about 10 minutes of Q&A. And if we don't have any Q&A, then we'll go ahead and end the session promptly. That's something that I think is always important to do, which is to honor people's time and to not make things last longer than they actually mean to. Deliver value in as concise a period as possible is a good style to use. So feel free to type your questions in the chat throughout. And again, if you're just joining, let us know where you're joining from, what area, because it's fun to see where people are coming in from around the world. The tips for keeping your composure while speaking live are going to be broken down into 3 tips. And you're going to see me glancing down here. My iPad's open, and I'm going to reference this as actually one of the tips. But when I speak live, I do a form of speaking called extemporaneous speaking. And when we teach public speaking, for those of you who aren't familiar with who I am, in addition to being a coach and communication expert, I'm also a professor at currently a college in New York City, but I've taught at some of the largest and most prestigious schools here in the United States. And I've worked with thousands of people from all over the world to help them become more effective public speakers. So when we teach public speaking in a college setting, what we learn is that there are 4 different types of speaking. There's impromptu speaking, which is off the cuff. There's extemporaneous, which is a conversational style where you use brief notes to be able to have talking points to keep you guided. That's what you're going to be able to see me do throughout, look down at my notes, and then come back and interact and talk with you. It's also manuscript and memorized, but we won't get into those today since those are not typically the style that we use in a live event. So the first tip that I want to get into is the concept of knowing your end goal. And in public speaking terms, this is having a thesis or purpose statement, a central idea. So thesis, purpose, or central idea. These terms are all interchangeable and refer to the same thing. One of the most important things to do when you start thinking about what you want to speak about and plan the overall purpose of the speech is to reverse engineer your talk. So in other words, from an academic or curriculum standpoint, what we do is by the end of this learning session, or in my academic world, by the end of this course, by the end of this lecture, in this case, by the end of this LinkedIn live learning session, you will be able to. So once you have that end goal really clear of what you want the people walking away with, then you can reverse engineer it and know what you need to do in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So we start with this idea of by the end, what do we want the people to know? So having a cognitive outcome, what knowledge transfer do we want? What do we want them to know? The second one becomes an energy or emotion transfer. By the end of this session, what do we want our listeners to feel? And that is an often overlooked outcome of a talk, of a learning session. Almost everybody focuses on the knowledge transfer. This is what we want you to know. Fewer people think about having an emotional outcome as one of the objectives, but it's crucial because we know from persuasion studies, which is another course that I teach in another area of specialization, we know from persuasion studies that it's actually the energy of emotion which drives behavior. Knowledge triggers emotion, but it's the emotion that actually drives the behavior. So again, first tip, know your end goal. Let's reverse engineer. Ask yourself to start these questions. What do you want your audience to know? What do you want your audience to feel? And what do you want your audience to do? Would be the third domain that you want to be thinking about for a learning outcome. Know, feel, do. And from there, we can reverse engineer and come up with a thesis statement, a central idea, or purpose statement, all interchangeable terms for the same thing. In other words, today I'm going to be talking to you about tips to overcome tips to keep your composure while speaking live. So that's going to be our thesis statement or purpose statement for this 20-minute learning session today. So I'm going to be offering you tips to keep your composure while speaking live. So I've already thought, because I've created this agenda, about what I want you to know, what I want you to feel, and what I want you to do by the end of this learning session. And then everything else, everything I'm talking about, the way I'm presenting it is designed to help you acquire that knowledge, that emotion, and encourage you to that behavior. So that first tip again, know the end of the speech or presentation goals. The second thing that you want to be thinking about under knowing your end goal is to know what is absolutely necessary to talk about in an agenda and what's okay to cut out. Anyone who's an experienced speaker or teacher or coach knows that one of the most difficult yet important things that we do is manage our time. So if I said it's going to be about 20 to 30 minutes, you got to stay in that time frame. People are busy, right? So they've committed a certain amount of time. Attention spans are only so long, and we have other obligations that we need to attend to. So sometimes when you're speaking live, you get unexpected questions, which are fantastic because that shows audience engagement. And you need to be able to know with that agenda that you've prepared for 20 to 30 minutes of content in this example, what you absolutely need to present in order to accomplish your objective, the thesis statement, and what areas you can cut out to allow for a little bit more impromptu interaction when important questions come up. So really understanding again, what are the items on your agenda that are absolutely essential to accomplishing that central purpose thesis statement at the beginning. And then you can play around with the time a little bit and cut things out as need be. So what I also help people do is provide low stress, no pressure speaking opportunities for both my clients and my students. And this is a tip that you can use for yourself, or if you're working with people who are trying to improve their public speaking, whether live or even pre-recorded is helpful. But it's learning to manage our time and get a concept of what time feels like. Most of us, when we're speaking, get lost in our own thoughts, which means we also get lost in time. And, you'll say you'll have 10 minutes to talk about this, and somebody will be talking and it's only been 5 minutes. And they're like, is that it? They're surprised. It felt like forever to them, but no, it was really only 5 minutes. Or more often, we get to the end of those 10 minutes and people didn't get to cover everything that they wanted to speak about because the 10 minutes just flew by and it's over before they know it. So I provide these no pressure, low stake speaking opportunities where you just could do something like recite the refrain from your favorite song. You could recite a nursery rhyme and just time it without watching the clock. So, turn on your timer on your phone, put it down upside down so you're not watching it, say the refrain or say the nursery rhyme out loud, and then flip the clock back over, the phone back over, and see how long it actually was. Before you look, take a guess how long it was. What did it feel like in the length of time for you? And then compare what you think it is with what it actually is when you flip it over. And that's how I help people start getting used to managing the time and getting this feeling of what time is when you're speaking. Really important for managing that goal of knowing your end goal, speaking about the important items, accomplishing your thesis statement or your purpose statement or your central idea in the time frame that you've allotted. The next thing, moving into the second aspect. So the first one was know your end goal. The second aspect I wanted to talk about today is then once you have an end goal, have a specific structure. This is probably the most important tip that I want to impress upon you today or share with you today, because I've seen this over and over again. The best central idea or thesis statement often doesn't really become successful or reach its full level of success for the listener until you wrap it in structure. Structure is important. Structure allows us to have a firm foundation upon which we can hang our ideas. So let me give you a metaphor to help you understand why structure is so important and still allows a level of flexibility. Think of structure as a skeleton. So, a human skeleton. Underneath the flesh, this basic human skeleton is the same: a spine, arms, legs, a pelvis, a head, right? The same basic structure for human skeletons. So, that foundation is there. And yet, on the outside, we get so much diversity in that skeleton, different sizes, different shapes. And then we hang skin on it and hair on it, and it looks so different. It feels so different. But underneath it, the structure is still the same. So that metaphor is to serve the purpose of your speech as well. So when you're speaking live, one way that you keep your composure is that you always have structure to fall back on. It's the skeleton. So if you start losing your train of thought, you just go right back into the structure. I provide a tool for you, and I'll share it in the notes if you're watching this on replay. It's on my website, rightbrainjourneys.com, and it's called the Simple Outline. This is a simple form where I've stripped back the formal academic outline with all the numbers and the Roman numerals. Truthfully, I've done so many lectures and so many speeches for over 14 years now. I never use those formal outlines that we were taught in school. This is the structure that I use when I speak to be effective. It's simple and it's bullet pointed, but it's going to give you an introduction. It's going to give you the body, which will have usually around 3 to 5 points, and it's going to have a conclusion. So it breaks it down in some more detail, but you can know where you're going. So for example, so far I am about 13 minutes in to this LinkedIn Live, and I've done an introduction. I've done main point 1 already, which was know your end goal. And now I'm coming towards the end of main point 2, which is the have structure. So judging by what I've been practicing, I have about 7 minutes of content left, which can be followed by any questions that you have. I'll be happy to answer those if we have people joining live. I'm right on track, so I can feel good about it. So I have one more main point after this, and then the conclusion. When you understand structure, it keeps you hyper organized, and you can always come back to that. Just to reinforce, because I always get this question as well, and it's a great question. Structure isn't meant to be rigid. Think of it like a building built in an earthquake zone. It's built to be strong and stand powerfully and accomplish its person to be a shelter, but it needs to go with the flow to a certain degree when there's an earthquake and the earth shifts and moves. So the same thing with the structure of your speech. This simple outline structure is meant to provide the foundation, but it still has a lot of room for flexibility. You can dress that structure up any way you want it. It can be a motivational speech. It can be an informative speech. It can be a persuasive speech. It can be a commemorative speech. The topic can change so it can look and feel very different. But underneath it all, the structure is basically the same. So the first tip to help you keep your composure while speaking live again was know your end goal. The second tip was to have structure. The third and final tip that I want to share today in this LinkedIn Live learning session is to prepare notes. Notes are different than that simple outline. You start with the simple outline, which is more elaborate. It's the full mapping of your structure. But notes become just very brief talking points, sometimes 1 or 2 words. And that's what I'm doing right now is I'm looking down at my notes, which is not my full outline. and it allows me to see what my next topic is. So, for example, I'm looking right now and it says use extemporaneous style of speaking. This is why notes are essential compared to your outline. It has to do with eye contact for engagement. We know from research studies in psychology and public speaking that eye contact is typically desired for 2 to 3 seconds before looking away. When you are the speaker, you are allowed to look away. That's part of the expression of your eyes. So as you're talking, you don't constantly look at the audience. Like right now, I'm looking at the camera. You're allowed to look away. But how often do you look away before looking back? And how often do you look at the people before looking away again? The general guideline for that is about 2 to 3 seconds. So you lock eye contact for 2 to 3 seconds. Then you're allowed to look away for a little bit more, come back for another 2 to 3 seconds. Then you can look away and express 2 to 3 seconds. Then you come down here, you can look at your next talking point and come back. So what we're finding from the research in psychology on this eye contact is when we look at one another in the eyes for 2 to 3 seconds, we start to sync for brain waves. So we start meshing and gelling with one another. We connect psychologically with one another. Whose brain waves are largely doing the syncing? It's going to be the speaker, because it's the speaker whose energy is dominant. The listener is listening. They're literally not putting their voice, which is an energy wave, right? A sound wave, out into the air. So it's the speaker's brain waves that are going to start syncing people. So that's powerful, 2 to 3 seconds. And having these notes with just 1 or 2 words to prompt you on what you're going to talk about next allows you to see the talking points you want to cover from your simple outline and then get back to this important eye contact, connecting and engaging with people. Going back to our first point of the learning objectives, by the end, what do you want people to know or feel? This eye contact is about the emotion or energy transfer, less about the knowledge transfer. So it's more about the how do you want people to feel? You're accomplishing that through the eye contact. So again, your speaking notes allows you to make more effective eye contact and keep on track. If you get pulled off the topic, it makes it really easy to just pick right back up where you left off. So what we've learned today is that some tips to keep your composure while speaking live. We've learned 3 main ideas. So the first idea, we learned that you're going to first know your end goal, reverse engineer your talk. By the end of the speech, presentation, learning session, talk, what do we want people to know? What do we want people to feel? And what behaviors do we want to encourage them to do? The second thing is to have structure. So I'm recommending that you check out the simple outline structure that I've used to have very successful lectures and speeches from many different lectures. Hi, Marie. Thank you for joining. See, I just lost my train of thought in that last sentence because a comment popped in. And it's not a big deal. It's conversational, right? When we're speaking conversational, it's not a pre-recording. You're going to stumble over some words. You can repeat a sentence, come back and make sure it's understood. Not a big deal. So have structure. Check out that simple outline that I'm dropping the link here. If you're watching it in the recording, you'll be able to access it on the landing page of my website, Right Brain Journeys. The third one is going to be preparing notes from that simple outline. And why, again, the important aspect of preparing those notes is that allows you to stay on track. If you get pulled off topic, you glance down, and notes are shorter than the outline. So you simply see, okay, I see where I'm going to go. And you come back for that really important eye contact of 2 to 3 seconds. Feel free to drop your comments in. We're coming up on about 20 minutes. So if you have questions, we can definitely chat here for up to another 10 minutes. I'm good for a 30-minute total learning session. I've reserved that time if we have questions. So as you're typing questions or thinking about anything you might want to ask, I wanted to share some other avenues, if you enjoyed this, that you can continue to engage and learn with me. The first thing is to be joining my LinkedIn newsletter every month. It's called Conscious Communication. If you're not already connected with me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request, not just follow, but if you go down to next to follow to the right, it'll offer the option of more. And then under there, you can connect with me. And then you'll see on my landing page that you'll be able to follow my monthly newsletter. On Friday, I'm going to go ahead and send out this month's. It's a monthly newsletter, so I'm going to send out this month's topic. And it always is helping people become more conscious communicators, which means that you're really thinking about what you know, what you feel, which allows us to strategically plan more of our behaviors and align those behaviors to the relationships that we want, to the life that we want, to the emotional experiences that we want. So basically, it's tools to help you start to act in life versus react in life. It can change the way we experience our lives. It's really powerful. I invite you to join my LinkedIn group, Communication and Public Speaking Mentorship Community for Coaches, Influence, and Entrepreneurs. I have a book as well, From Student to Professional, which is an essential soft skills guide specifically for aspiring STEM professionals, though the tips are helpful for anybody, but I've really catered that to our science, technology, engineering, and math students. I have instructor led virtual courses as well as public speaking and do one on one coaching. So if any of this is interesting to you, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and check out my website, Right Brain Journeys. Would be happy to work with you. Finally, if you work for an organization, for business, certainly I do company workshops and work with leaders as well. So feel free to reach out. I'll take a look here in the chat for anyone who's joining live. If you wanted to ask questions again, please feel free to go ahead and drop that in the chat. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I'll wait for another 1 to 2 minutes and just make some small talk to see if any messages come in. Some things that people have asked me, what's my favorite thing about doing LinkedIn Lives? My favorite aspect is really getting to see how people from all over the world can hear about your message, and then starting to see who really connects with you. So this is a little bit of marketing and analyzing your audience aspect that are combined, because each person tends to resonate with a certain type of audience, and that type is really the interesting thing for you to discover. For me, largely, a lot of my audience ends up being female, uh, working professionals between the ages of about 25 and 50 tend to be the ones that most often tune into me. So LinkedIn Live, not only is it just helpful to get your face out there and it can help build your level of confidence and mastery, but it's the receiving end of it as well, seeing which people tune in regularly, which people give you feedback that they appreciated it and they valued. That gives you really helpful business or entrepreneurial information, because you start to see the audience with whom your message really resonates. So that's usually my favorite thing about LinkedIn Live. And then, of course, the other question that comes in is, what's my least favorite thing about doing a live, whether it's LinkedIn or any other platform? And that would be usually the time constraint, because attention spans are shorter. We're all really busy. So I am someone who is, I like quality basically in everything. I like quality food, quality clothes, quality friendships, quality conversation. I'm not a kind of Reels person that much, or TikTok kind of person. I'm not just producing fluff to get it out there. I want to enrich people's lives with information. So the most challenging thing about doing a shorter live event is, how do you design a short lesson to really deliver quality value that turns on new ways of thinking to people, inspires them to pursue new ways of learning, new ways of being, and from a business standpoint, also encourages them to reach out to me. If it's going to be you doing these, that encourages them to reach out to you to find out more, because you've given them enough nuggets of value that there's a desire to go deeper in the work with you. So that's always, I find, the most challenging aspect of doing a live, is packing it full of enough value so it satisfies my learning objective and my desire for quality, as well as offers that value to the audience. Okay, thank you for joining today. Looking in the chat, looks like we just had one comment today. Not a big deal. If you're watching this on replay, feel free to connect with me and send me any messages. I wish you all a great day. See you next month. Bye-bye.